One. And it's your boys Alonso y Juan with the baby face gimmick voice in the sky, Roger. Juan, it's you know what I like about doing this podcast?
What's that, Alonzo?
From time to time we get to have some dope people on. And this week we get to have a super dope person on that has a hell of a story, but also is a beat writer for the Dodgers for the Los Angeles Times. We have Jorge Castillo joining us this week. Jorge, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for making the time, man. So we'll just kind of dive right into it if you don't mind. You know, as you know, the season started off with a lot of optimism and even the great piece that you did earlier this year on Clayton Kershaw and talking fatherhood and Dodgers, future. It was all roses and daisies, and here we are now. Looks like, according to Mr. Oral Hershiser last Sunday, that it's time to sound the alarm bells on this Dodgers team. And obviously you cover the beat. It's an interesting beat overall because it's the Dodgers. What's kind of been your sense of that clubhouse? Kind of looking at everything where we are now.
Yeah, it's tough because this is the 1 year. I guess not the 1 year, the second year now where we don't have access to the clubhouse, and this is one of those times where you really wish you did have access to see what's going on in there and how guys actually feel. And just being in a clubhouse, it's like being in any workplace, any room. You understand how guys are feeling or thinking, even if they don't tell you anything, right? You're in the room and you look around and see how guys communicate and carry themselves. So that's something that I think is anyone who's a fan of the team or any observers, anybody who wants to know what's going on, good, bad, in between, they don't have that this year. We're kind of at the mercy of these Zoom calls, pregame, postgame, and when you talk to them, they say we're frustrated, but we're not panicking. It's a long season. Last night the other day we heard for the first time from Clayton Kershaw. Not the first time. I mean, Mookie said it when they were in Milwaukee. We can't keep saying that it's going to happen. We can't keep waiting. We got to keep winning, right? We got to start winning. And Clayton Kershaw said it the other day, and Trevor Bauer again said he's super frustrated. It sucks. So I think we're slowly seeing the frustration come out a little bit, and you would expect that when this skid's on 3 weeks now, 5-20, 5-15 over the last 20. And as you guys know, they started 13-2. And, I thought they were going to turn around against Cincinnati. I thought they were going to turn around against Milwaukee, 17 guys on the IL for them. I thought they were going to turn around against the Cubs. They were struggling worse than they were. I thought they were going to turn around against the Angels, who were struggling worse than they were. But this is just going and going and going. And it's shocking to be honest. But, while you kind of roll your eyes at it's a long season, it's true. It is a long season. This team, that in 17 lost 16 of 17, and 18 started 16-26. They've had their rough patches. I think people have forgotten it just because 19, the regular season went so well, won a franchise record amount of games, and last year was just they steamrolled through everybody. So this kind of stuff does happen. It's just in the moment, it's kind of hard to remember that. It's kind of zoom out, but they do have their problems right now. It's manifesting themselves that those problems are surfacing a lot over the last 3 weeks.
Jorge, it's Juan. So answer this for me, please. Is this the curse of Plashke, or is this the curse of Farmer John? I know he's your colleague, but he wrote an article very early saying this was going to be the best of 2021, and Dylan Hernandez does not let up on that. Do you guys give Plashke a lot of grief over that?
Oh, of course. I mean, anytime you kind of put yourself out there like that, I mean, Bill has his takes, and he's not afraid of them, good, bad, ugly, in between. Yeah, man, it's become a joke now. It's a joke. It's like we're like ESPN, we create the headline, and then we just keep going at it right now with that because we're writing like the best. This isn't the best team ever. It's like, well, we called it the best team ever, right? Bill Plashke did. He writes for us. So, hey, man, for 15 games, he looked good. Everyone thought it was the truth. Turns out you got to play teams besides the Rockies, and you got to avoid injury. It's Farmer John. That's a good call too. It's now the curse of Vernon, I guess, right? Is that the new manufacturer or whatever? Yeah, man. I don't know how to explain it. It's just been this team is so good on paper. And I wrote it on Friday, actually. I'm not sure if you guys saw, but to me, this all starts with Corey Seager and Mookie Betts. Once those guys get rolling, they're 1-2 hitters. We saw it all. I mean, not all last year. Like last year was super long, but we saw it last year, right? They were like two of the best 10 hitters, 10 players in baseball. Corey Seager, by the end of October, was like a top 5 player in baseball. Everyone was like, this guy's going to get 300, 400 million. He's going to get all this money. And he just hasn't been very good this year. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And it's not just an offensive funk. Defensively, he's just not as good as he has been. Not that he was ever a great shortstop, but he's not making simple plays that he used to make before. And Mookie Betts is kind of just been off. He had that back thing early in April that he missed 4 games, and he got hit by a pitch in Seattle in the forearm. He just usually does, taking pitches in the zone that he never does. It's just kind of an odd mix. It's really strange to see. And these guys, the Dodgers are going to say, "Hey, this is the worst of it, right? Mookie's not getting going. Corey Seager's not getting going. Bullpen's like 5 down. Well, 4 down now that Joe Kelly's back. Our depth's been hit by Bellinger and McKinstry being out. Like this is the worst of it. Can't get any worse than this. It's just the problem is it's going on 2 weeks right now."
Out of those guys that are struggling, one guy that's hopefully coming back that you mentioned is Cody Bellinger. As far as that end of it goes, obviously everyone's been frustrated. Everyone's, and now it's showing because Trevor Bauer came out and said what he said yesterday, whatever it was, about how frustrating it is. So obviously that it's kind of coming to a boil. But as far as like those injuries go, is there one of those injuries in your opinion that if, let's say, this continues to drag on and it ends up being a legitimate slump? I don't think that's what it is by any stretch. I don't think it's a World Series slump. I don't think it's any of that jazz. It's just the timing of it is what it is, right? But is any one of those injuries that, if it were to kind of be a recurring thing, and the reason I point out Belly is because, he's had some of that recurring stuff over the last couple of years, that could detrimentally affect this team going into the remainder of the year, even if they are able to get out of this slump?
I don't think there's like a one injury. I will say the one area of this team that I think will need to get help over the course, by the trade deadline is the bullpen. They came into the season, running kind of 2 buckets of risks, in my opinion, from my vantage point. One was they have like 3 guys who have never been relievers. They try to make them relievers to start the year. Coincidentally, I'm not saying this is all connected to that, but they all got hurt, except for, 2 of them got hurt, Gonsolin and Price, right? Jimmy Nelson's still in there. And then the other bucket where Jimmy Nelson's also in is they have injury risks. Joe Kelly, they knew he had surgery in November, so he missed a month. They thought it was going to be like 2 weeks, but he missed a month. Bruce Gratterall came here with a bunch of injury risks. That's why the Boston Red Sox didn't want him after seeing his medicals. Corey Knebel, who's down for several months. We're not going to see him probably till August, September. And then Jimmy Nelson's another injury risk, right? So you have like a bunch of guys in that bullpen. You constructed a bullpen with risks. And we're seeing the worst of it right now. But I do think down the line, we will see them make a move for a reliever or 2. So I guess like I want to say one injury to the bullpen. Out McKinnon out in bonus. Zach McKinstry wasn't supposed to do that, which we're seeing now. Let's see this year this early, and pitching like these extra inning games that are just right
here.
Yes, as I was saying, like these guys, they didn't expect Garrett Clevenger, Alex Vesia, Edwin Uceta, Dennis Santana. I'm naming guys that like I didn't expect to see on the roster this soon, pitching this amount of leverage innings, high leverage innings. They're seeing guys that, Andrew Friedman, when he made this roster, did not expect to see Garrett Clevenger pitching in multiple extra inning games in April.
So as far as, you were talking about the COVID thing, how that's affected the environment. You're accustomed to being in and out of the clubhouse, talking to the guys, gauging the vibe. Obviously last year is a lot like how this year was. You were with that fantastic piece that you did with Clayton Kershaw, which gave everyone an insight as to kind of the mindset of a guy that is that way off the field as well. Which again, kudos to you on the fantastic get on that story. How was it for you being embedded with him and kind of seeing him kind of in real time really figure out kind of, okay, this could be my last year as a Dodger, but the future obviously is what it is. But going from the COVID to that back to the COVID, kind of what was that kind of transition like?
Yeah, is being around him, you know, it's rare that you get a chance to spend time with a guy like that, pretty much at any point, right? Like me going down and seeing him in a different element, I think was different and cool. From just like somebody who works in this, because usually we just get these guys in a baseball setting, right? Sometimes you meet them up for like a lunch or coffee or whatever, but it's always sort of the same kind of feel. It was interesting getting a chance to see him in a different kind of, a different setting. A lot going on, obviously. I think part of his motivation was that he didn't have a chance to really talk about it winning the World Series or celebrate it with people and go on all those talk shows and do all that kind of stuff that, they usually do, right? The parade didn't happen. The kind of organic celebrations that you dream of, right? When you're a kid and being a champion is one thing, but like you also want to do all the stuff that comes with it, right? You get your ring, you do all the celebrations. I think he missed out on that. I think there was a sense of that for sure. I think being around him, the first thing that you kind of strikes you is how he's kind of a guy, he's not, I don't want to get into his home too much, but it's like, it's not like anything that's out of this world. And he's not doing anything, like he just takes his kids to school and goes home and chills and works out. And so that was cool to see. And, obviously there's a lot going on with the contract situation. I had tons of questions to ask and I asked him and he was very honest and forthright on a lot of issues, a lot of things, right? About his career and what it felt to win a World Series and what's coming up next. And together, yeah, like the Zoom stuff, man, I don't know if I can swear, but yeah, I hate this shit like with a passion. I think all the players do. It's not just us, the players. I know Dave Roberts doesn't like it. It's just it's very impersonal, right? So like you go to a guy's house and you spend time with him and you write this and think it came out well and he thinks it came out well, and like I haven't seen him since. I haven't like done this kind of thing since, because we do our Zoom calls with the Dodgers and it's a black. It's just they don't see our names and it's black, so like they don't even see our faces. It makes the job a little slightly more difficult, and I think it does a disservice to fans and readers and anybody that wants to pay attention and loves baseball, who loves any sports. It's not just this sport that's going through that right now. But yeah, man, the Kershaw thing, it was it happened. It was cool, never getting a chance to sort of tell a story of a guy, a future Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer, who had just done what he had done, all the stuff that he had gone through his career, the October failures, and finally getting to do it. And, there was a lot there. And his future is interesting to me, I think, to a lot of people. I think the way in which he kind of handles himself with his family, he's very much a family first person, and that is not phony. I think some people can be phony about different things. He's not a phony person. He is who he is. So it's all interesting. I'm super interested to see how this plays out in, this winter, if there ever is a free agency, if they ever figure out the CBA. But yeah, that's another matter.
We're joined this week by Jorge Castillo, beat writer for the Dodgers for the Los Angeles Times. Speaking of that, Juan, I know you. I have a feeling I know what the question was that was coming. So please ask him the question.
I actually know it's not what you think it is. What I wanted to follow up with Jorge is I did read his piece where he was talking about how Mookie and Seager are the ones that drive the Dodgers and they need to start playing better. But being that right now you just brought up, it'll be interesting to see what they do about Kershaw. You have Corey Seager's in pending free agency. And in your article, I mean, there's so many things that I want to go over that article with you about, but you did mention one. I think you hinted at how healthy really is Mookie. Is that back an issue? Is it going to be an issue all season? He did go 4 for 10 against the Angels this weekend, so I don't know if that's maybe a sign. But if I think Mookie may have that excuse at the back, but what's wrong with Corey Seager? Like, not only, I mean, you were talking about it, offensively, he was great towards the end of last year. He started off great at the beginning of this year, but defensively, and you're right, he's never been known as a defensive shortstop, but he looks pretty bad out there, and he's the shortstop. You can't hide him anywhere like that. I mean, are they telling him not to dive for balls? Because some of those backhanded balls, he just looks rough out there. Make it simple for me, Jorge. What's wrong with Corey Seager?
The Dodgers claim not to know. So that's the thing. You ask people on and off the record, he's not playing shortstop well. He's not a good shortstop. I mean, and I think he's never been a very good shortstop. I think what the Dodgers do really well is they position the infielders in a way in which these problems get masked or papered over. These guys get positioned where, Corey Seager, what he does well is the routine play. He does not mess up the routine play. He handles that really well. I mean, everyone the perfect way to describe it, how things work, right? Fernando Tatis has 10 errors. Last I checked, 10 errors this season. Everyone's like, oh, he's the worst defensive shortstop. He gets the balls that Corey Seager can't dream of getting to make errors on, right? So Corey Seager to me is playing. I'm not watching Fernando Tatis every day, but I can't imagine Tatis is playing that much of a worse shortstop. I'm sure it is a worse shortstop because he's not making routine plays, but Seager, he's not making backhanded plays. And then the one play that he made in Chicago where he actually stopped the ball with his backhand and threw wildly to second base, it's like, all right, well, can't do one. He does one, can't do the other. I don't know what's wrong with Corey Seager at second shortstop, but as of right now, he's playing himself out of shortstop. He's not going to be in the shortstop, and that feature is coming quick, where he'll have to change positions because he's not playing like a shortstop right now. My guess is he signs as a third baseman wherever he plays next year. Just because he's not playing like a shortstop right now. And there are so many shortstops out there. We're talking about a million, all the shortstops out there in baseball. Traditionally shortstop was the hardest sort of position to figure out and fill with a guy who can hit. Everybody at shortstop right now is, seemingly there are so many good shortstops out there. So it might be the situation where next year he signs. Maybe he does play shortstop for another year or two, but I don't see him playing there long term. I see him probably signing as a third baseman next year. But yeah.
So the way he's playing shortstop, do you think that's going to hurt his chances of re-signing with the Dodgers? Is this making the Dodgers front office kind of rethink how much money we're going to throw at this guy?
I think the chances of him re-signing with the Dodgers are really low, regardless. So that's my take.
Hot take right there from Jorge.
Yeah, I to be honest, I don't really see him re-signing, but that can change over the next few months or whatever. But yeah, if he's not going to play shortstop, the chances dwindle even further. Now, not saying that it wouldn't happen. He could play third base for them. If they have a DH next year, Turner could play some first and DH. Muncy splitting some time at first base and DH. And then maybe you move a Gavin Lux over to shortstop and have McKinstry play second base. I know they like Gavin Lux as a shortstop. They think he's a better defensive. It's weird to say this, but they think he's better defensively at shortstop than he is at second base because he doesn't have the throwing sort of stuff that he's had at second base because shortstop becomes more naturally to him. And then, you got like Zach McKinstry and Chris Taylor who can play second base. They're not, Max Muncy's playing first base mostly now because of Lux, but also they prefer him there at first base. So, you can make these pieces fit, especially if you have a DH next year. But yeah, for as of right now, I don't see Corey Seager playing shortstop much longer. People were saying this since he came into the league, right? He's people are shocked he's been a shortstop for this long. So he just kind of, the way he's been playing this first month of the season. I mean, unless he turns things around and all of a sudden becomes like Ozzie Smith over there, it's I think it's going to be, people kind of seeing where this is going. The problem is right now is the Dodgers need to figure it out for this year, right? They're not moving him off shortstop this year unless it gets so bad that they can't do anything else. They need him to figure it out for this year.
What do you think I was going to ask him, Alonso?
About the impending lockout that is coming up. I'm of the party that I think it's happening. I was actually kind of curious to hear your prediction on that, Jorge. Do you think there will be a stoppage of well, not stoppage because it's after the season, but essentially a lockout.
Jorge, both of us are on record as saying we are convinced there is a lockout. I mean, a lockout next year.
I'm convinced as well. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to tell you, Rob Manfred's going to come out here and say they're already talking. Look at us, progress. I mean, we saw what happened during the stoppage, during the shutdown last year with the COVID stuff. And I mean, it became like a social media soap opera, right? People going back and forth, and the PA, the union being mad that everything was public, and Major League Baseball using the media to put pressure on the players. And, at the end of the day, what happened was exactly what both sides didn't want to happen. It was Rob Manfred acting unilaterally to have a 60-game season, which nobody wanted. Well, I think the owners probably wanted it because they lost less money that way, but the players didn't want it. So I think this always goes down. It's like a kid at it's like a sophomore, in college working on his paper, right? It's always going to the absolute last minute, and it's probably going to get ugly. And yeah, I don't see them getting to December 1st and kind of just things moving smoothly going forward from there. I think there's going to be some kind of stoppage at some point. Well, December 1st.
I agree with that. I mean, if there's one thing that baseball has done a fantastic job of, and I'm a lifer, right, is they just do a great job of getting in their own way. It's fantastic how they just go about it. But I mean, it is what it is. It's going to come to a head, and just like anything else with the critical mass, it's kind of inevitable. So I mean that's I 100% agree. I am curious to hear your take on Kershaw. Going back to him, do you think he retires a Dodger?
I think as of right now, I would say, yeah, that's my guess. I think what's going to happen, the Rangers are the obvious team, the obvious other team in this. They're just not winning right now. And, I've had people that say it's hard for them to imagine Clayton Kershaw going to a team that's going to lose all the time, So, I think as of right now, I would say, yeah, do I think he signs a multi-year deal this winter? No, it might be a one year by 1 year type of deal with Kershaw moving forward, or, because it takes two to do this, right? If the Dodgers see this as, I wonder how much they're willing to, maybe go 2-3 years with him. We saw the 2 years with an option, I think it was the last time out, or what? It was a straight 3-year deal. Yeah, straight 3-year deal, 93 mil, I think. So, maybe they go 2 years, or maybe it's year by year. But yeah, as of right now, I would say that I just don't see Kershaw going anywhere else but Texas. And since they're not winning, it's hard for me to say he'll go there. I know for a fact that the last time he was a free agent, when he signed a 3-year deal, Texas was the only possibility. It was the only remote possibility, and they're not winning. So I just don't see it as a real threat as of right now.
Jorge, you had mentioned that you see the Dodgers making a move for a couple of arms out of the bullpen, and I thought for sure that was going to be the move, but I think they're going to have to make a move for the bench too. I don't. Do you think there are any in-house solutions to the bench situation? Because Rios looks lost, and I don't know if maybe now with minor league games starting up, he might be able to find something out there. But I don't think Luke Raley, I don't think some of these other guys that are, that they've had to use because of injury, DJ Peters, I don't think those guys are major leaguers.
I think we got to think about it this way. Injuries are going to happen, but you get McKinstry and Bellinger back, that moves Beatty down to the bench. I mean, Chris Taylor, against lefties this year, if AJ Pollock was playing left field, Chris Taylor was a bench player, right, to start the year, right? And he's been one of the most important. He's not really a bench player. The guy plays basically every day, just bounces around, right? I think when you add McKinstry and you add Bellinger, you knock two guys down and that bench becomes better. But I do think they are missing a right-handed bat on the bench. It was a problem going in, it wasn't a problem going into the year, but it was something they thought they wanted to address it. They knew it was something. So I do think at some point here you could see a right-handed bat. I don't think the answer is DJ Peters. I don't think the answer, the problem with Keibert Ruiz is, they're going to carry 3 catchers. I mean, they could theoretically. We've seen Austin Barnes play second base 3 times in the last week, which is not by design. Will Smith is infield experience, but Dave Roberts has said a couple of times now that he doesn't see those guys playing infield like unless it's like in a pinch, as we've seen with Barnes. But yeah, the bench is, they don't have the depth they had, 2 years ago, right? They had Kike and then Jock, but on top of that, they had Beatty coming up and Rios
Right.
coming up and Verdugo was here, and they had Kyle Garlick showed up and played like halfway decent for like a week. Like they don't have those guys right now. So that is a sort of a problem, I guess. I think the solution is, two guys come back and maybe a right-handed bat. I do think they need maybe another right-handed bat off the bench. But I just think right now, man, that in my eyes, I see two, if they keep digging themselves a hole, I think the bullpen in August and September, like they'll need to firm it up for the stretch run to make sure you win a division if you're going to keep creating this hole for yourself. Now, I don't think the bullpen will be a problem in October, because as we saw last year, right? For example, I mean, Julio went to the bullpen, Dustin May went to the bullpen, Tony Gonsolin went to the bullpen. They reinforced that bullpen with starters. Now, granted, this year they don't have Dustin May to do that with, but these guys with the surplus of starters that they have can kind of make things happen in October. Now it's about August and September and making sure you win that division, and I think that's why they're going to shore up that bullpen.
And we have Jorge Castillo with us here for a few more minutes on the Bleed Los podcast. And I'm kind of curious, who do you think that arm is that they go after? And I know that we will probably all be wrong if we make a prediction who they trade for, just because Andrew likes to pull dudes that I have never heard of in my entire life. But I mean, I'll Max Muncy. We should just throw that out as an example. Or every time that Chris Taylor hits a bomb, the Seattle Mariners traded Chris Taylor for to the Dodgers for a tweet that you see where it's like the Mariners are still waiting on their return on that trade. Right. But if because obviously there's always going to be that, a part of that fan base that's like, when are they going to go after Josh Hader? When are they going to go after Hader? When are they going to go after Hader? And I don't think that's the move. They're going to go after, someone again that we don't know. But if you were to, because obviously they made some moves today. They signed Kevin Quackenbush to a minor league deal, and a couple other guys, to some minors deals to kind of get the action going, but no one of notable name aside from Kevin Quackenbush. But if you were to make a prediction, who do you think that arm would be that they'd be going after?
I'm gonna cop out here and say I have no idea. And now the best way to sort of figure this out is literally go through the worst teams in baseball. Right? I'm looking on the Tigers baseball reference page. The Tigers are not going to make the playoffs. That's right. The best. The Orioles are not going to make the playoffs. The Rockies, I know Michael Givens might be available. I don't know if the Dodgers like Michael Givens. This is the best way to do it. Literally, the 5, 7, 10 worst teams in baseball, go through their bullpen, see who's doing pretty well, and kind of maybe that might be one of their guys. No, this is how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's, I don't even know. I'm looking at this thing here. I don't know the Tigers very well, but there might be a guy there who's pitching well, or someone that the Dodgers see who's pitching okay, and they're like, yeah, we can fix him. Now, Jake McGee, right? Remember him? That's a guy that they, he left Colorado. They kicked him out of there. Dodgers figured it out with him. He just threw fastball. They let him go. I mean, the Giants signed him this year, and now he's killing it up in San Francisco. The Dodgers identify guys that they think they can figure out. But yeah, man, for me to sit here and tell you who they're going to sign or trade for really, I don't know. I do know that there was some interest in Shane Green, but Shane Green wanted to pay for the Atlanta Braves, so that wasn't going to happen. Yeah, I mean, we saw a guy like Tanner Roark, who's a starting pitcher. He got waived by the Blue Jays, signed a minor league deal with the Braves. Like any little thing can happen. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago at this point, right, with Brandon Morrow, who could have seen that coming? Sometimes guys kind of like rise up in the bullpen and figure things out and are just overpowering because the bullpen's so volatile. Figuring out relievers is just it's not a science. It's not an art. No one knows how to do it. So yeah, man, for me to take a stab at that, I don't know. Sorry. I'm not.
No.
I just don't want to be so wrong. I'd be so wrong.
It's okay. It's not like we're going to record this and then hold you to it, come September.
But the reason that I asked that question is because a lot of people think that that the Dodgers are just trying to go out and get the best of the best. And truthfully, anyone that knows anything, that they don't. They just try to go out what fits their mold and their blueprint. So I'm expecting them to trade from someone for the Marlins that we've never heard of. That's literally what I'm expecting.
Also, something else to keep in mind is like they've had a deep farm system for a while, but
Right.
and I think they still do. Just they don't have the name recognition right now. I think by the end of this minor league season, we're going to be hearing about like Bobby Miller is going to be a thing. Michael Bush, Caber already is one. Josiah Gray is already a name. I think we'll see those names pop up because after a season with no games, it's kind of hard to like have guys hyped up and all that. Brian Pepio is another guy. But as of right now, like they don't have guys that we say, well, we can flip this guy and get like a great reliever or whatever at the deadline. They don't. I mean, Josiah Gray, but like, do you want to trade Josiah Gray when you don't have too much, help in AAA right now that can help you? I don't think Josiah Gray is a starter, a major league starter right now, but he might be a reliever in September. So you don't necessarily, they don't have a lot of inventory right now to sell off for a reliever. Not as much as they used to just a few years ago, right? So that's a sort of another factor. Is again, who's going to be available? Like, who's the best reliever on one of the worst teams in baseball? I'd have to go through the list, and Iglesias was traded to the Angels, and you see guys kind of get flipped here or there. Like relievers are they're the most traded commodities every single trade deadline. You see them righties, lefties. Sometimes teams get multiple. Sometimes they trade one, they get another. It's like you see it all the time. Things happen. So I do think the Dodgers will be in that market at some point here.
Jorge, before we let you go, there is a little something that we do on the show that we started with Adrian Gonzalez, and that is, I mean, I don't know, you're an East Coast guy, right? You're born out there. What part of the East Coast are you from?
Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. So, have you had a chance to be in LA for long? I know you started covering the team right when the pandemic happened, right?
No, I've been here since September 18th. I've been in LA. Yeah.
So, being that you're in LA, what is your go-to taco? Like, what is a taco? I know not
like a place or like the actual taco.
No, an actual taco. Whether it's a carne asada, al pastor, what kind of taco guy are you?
So I thought it was an al pastor, but I don't think I am anymore. I think it's carne asada. But I try to stay away from carne asada. The red meat stuff. So I try to go. I try to go pollo all the time. And
is there a place in LA that
my fiance is Mexican? Like, her parents are from there, and all that stuff.
So do you just go to her parents then to get real tacos, or is there a
every
place?
Wednesday they live in Montebello? She grew up in Montebello, so every Wednesday they have this fish taco spot they swear by. So we get that when we go over there on Wednesdays. They love the fish. I like fish tacos too. That's actually a good one. Fish tacos.
I can put you down for a fish taco guy because Gonzalez was a carne asada guy. So we can put you down if fish was a fish taco.
You can't go wrong with carne asada. So because fish you can miss with fish more than you can miss with carne asada. You can kind of. I love carne asada though. When I show up at a taco trunk kind of drunk at after being off a little bit, I'll get carne asada over the fish taco.
So can I ask why you're not an al pastor guy anymore?
I just every time when I get it, I think I had like a couple of really, really good ones, and then I've kind of been disappointed because my expectations maybe are just so high. Just they haven't been as good. I don't know why. So I'm just kind of just like, oh, this is good. Every time I have it, it's like, oh, this is good.
Have you ventured out to like lengua or buche or cabeza? Or
lengua, see, I had lengua. I like lengua. I've had buche. I've had all that stuff. Lengua, I actually kind of like lengua.
Lengua is my go-to. That's my favorite lengua.
We're taqueros here on the show, so anytime we can talk about tacos, we bring it up.
I try to every time I see something when I'm with my fiance, I'm like, I'm having that. Like, what is that? She took me like the King Taco, obviously, on the east side, and
the fish place is it Tacos Baja by any chance?
I don't know the name of it. Her parents go pick it up. Like we don't go with them.
Oh, okay.
So, but I think so. Like we've gone like King. Like she showed me King Taco. She's like, this. It's not as good as it used to be, but I'll take you. All that stuff. But man, I'm just trying to get with the culture. Like I didn't grow up with a lot of Mexicans on the East Coast. It's Puerto Rican, Dominican, Colombian, Ecuadorian. More like
we're all about celebrating culture on the show. So
I didn't grow up with Mexicans. Like I had 3 in my high school. I had like 3 in my high school, and they were all like siblings. So yeah.
So what dish, what Puerto Rico, because you're Puerto Riqueño, what Puerto Rican dish should I have? What is the go-to Puerto Rican
Well,
dish for you?
there is a, I know of one Puerto Rican restaurant in the LA area, and then there's like 2 food trucks. But the Puerto Rican dish, it's like actually the restaurant in North Hollywood is called Mofongos, which is like the Puerto Rican dish. But like my favorite is like the rice, like arroz con gandules, which is like rice with pigeon peas. I've been eating that nonstop the last like 3 days since I've been here. There's that. There's pernil, which is like pork shoulder. That's a Christmas staple, New Year's staple. This is pollo guisado. It's everything is rice, like it's a rice with the meat. You can do steak, you can do chicken, you can do pork, costilla, you can do whatever, whatever. But yeah, it's usually rice with the meat. And arroz con gandules is my mom's. I'm gonna sound like every son out there. So.
Well, no, I mean, that's how it is in our culture too. I mean, I live and die by my mom's beans. I can't eat beans anywhere else. I mean, that's the staple.
I'm telling you, even like beans, right? Like you guys call them frijoles. We call them habichuelas. And like my fiance and she teaches me the Mexican Spanish stuff. I'm teaching her the Puerto Rican Spanish stuff. And it's like, it's funny seeing how like things work, but it's great to kind of like be immersed in a different culture while having similarities.
Have you learned yet that Mexicans give everyone nicknames?
I haven't gotten one from her family.
Okay.
Maybe they don't like me. I gotta go find that out. No, they're kind of, yes, they do give each other nicknames. They got weird, because I know my fiance got weird nicknames for her siblings. They give each other weird nicknames, but yeah.
That is a thing though. I grew up with a kid in East LA that we call him El Calcetín. Yeah. And that's still his nickname to this day, El Calcetín, because he ran around. I don't know why he would just run around with no shoes on. So that fool was always in socks, and that's when we all grew up in the hood, and that was everyone had these dope names, and this fool El Calcetín. So it lingers around.
Real intimidating sound.
Yeah, I mean, I would fight him just based on the name, just based on the name. And last question before we cut you loose, because I did want to ask you this as a fellow nerd. I'm a history buff as well. I know you went to Yale, and you went from the Ivy League to the West Coast. I know that's a thing, but your major was history. I'm kind of curious. What is your favorite actual topic historically to dive into that you even now as an adult, when you're busy with stuff, you're just like, Savas, I'm going to sit down and read this book.
Yeah. So actually, it's probably 2 different areas, and it's my thesis was on Puerto Rican sovereignty and national identity, Puerto Rican sovereignty and national identity in the Olympics. And the idea like Puerto Rican has their own Olympic team, and they do their own thing. It's not just Olympics; it's World Baseball Classic. It's FIBA. It's, I would say FIFA, but we don't play soccer. But it's different. It's a different identity, right? Like even though it's part of the United States. So I dove into that for my thesis, and I'm really into Caribbean history, like the Spanish Caribbean, the Cuba. Like I spent a lot of time in college studying about Cuba and the Cold War and the revolution, Fidel's revolution, and learning about that. And Dominican Republic to me is super interesting, the history there, because just being Puerto Rican, there's a lot of there's the connection there is just, you can't avoid it. The connection between the DR, Puerto Rico, and Cuba, especially Cuba and Puerto Rico. I actually took a class in college about those 2 histories, how they were very, very, very similar and then kind of diverged. Literally, one chose the Soviet Union, one chose the United States, right? You can't get any more polarizing than that. So I really love that part of it. And really, you can kind of get into like the whole American influence, the Soviet influence, are all around Latin America, right? Sandinistas, the Cuba, Nicaragua, Puerto Rico, Chile. All those areas and all that stuff. And to me, that's really fascinating. So I was really also into like the Cold War and like why that came to be, and like the effects that it had on like Latin America, more specifically like those 2 places, Cuba and Puerto Rico. I've always wanted to go to Cuba. I have friends that have gone, and it's just really interesting to me. But I would say, and I'm a huge I took a lot of like Civil War. Like I was really into like the American Civil War for a bit, like real nerd shit. just
Did you do the reenactments? Did you ever
no,
dress up?
I didn't do that. I didn't go that far. I just reading books,
Did you just accuse Jorge Castillo of LARPing? Because I don't appreciate that.
Hey, what? There's no judgment here. If he wanted to dress up,
if
he wanted to put on the grays and just pretend for one day he was a racist, whatever. That's up to him.
It wasn't that serious, but I mean, I also World War II. Like I'm thinking like all these big ones, but like those I find. I think most people find World War II more interesting than World War One just because of who was in World War II. But yeah, I was really into that. Took a couple classes on that. But to me, like I just find the Cold War and just like because it affects I think it affects all ours, beyond like the United States, right? Like where our people come from, quite a bit. And actually, I'm down YouTube rabbit holes about Puerto Rican history almost, once a week, just like learning new stuff because Just being from out here, like even in Puerto Rico, my mom would be like, "Oh, I never knew that," because my parents were born and raised there, and well, actually they were born in New York but raised in Puerto Rico. But yeah.
No, real quick because you brought it up, Jorge. Are you a fan of the World Baseball Classic?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the idea,
but Major League Baseball is never going to allow it to succeed, is it?
Well, the problem with any of these leagues, man, is like they're afraid of the pitching. Is guys can get hurt. That's unpredictable. The best way to do this is just get pitching machines out there and just have like somebody just kind of choose when they're gonna pitch, like what they want to pitch and when. Because these guys are never like baseball is not the same when you're like, hey man, like Max Scherzer can't pitch for the U.S. or whoever can't pitch for this. Like if Julio Urias isn't gonna pitch for Mexico, like come on, that's not the best team they can get. Vito Gonzalez has to be in the bullpen for them, and Sergio Romo and all those guys. Like they have to have their team, but you can't have that especially with the pitching. Offense wise, the Dominicans show up every 4 years with everybody, right? A-Rod we even want to play for him. Yeah. So, I love the idea though. I mean, the Olympics this year. I know Gonzalez is going to play for Mexico. Adam Jones supposed to play for the U.S. So I love the idea of that. I just like in practice, it's hard. This isn't soccer. Soccer doesn't have the element of pitching. Like pitching is one, you never know when a guy's going to blow out. And what happens if, some like stud, like ace or prospect blows out his arm in some like WBC game, it's not worth it to some of these teams, but I love the idea of it. I mean, every time I see PR on there in Puerto Rico, I'm rooting. I got my
let me tell you, I went to the final the last classic, and you guys took over Dodger Stadium, man. The Puerto Ricanos knew how to throw a party. Like they were literally just walking through the aisles at Dodger Stadium and would just randomly just cheer and sing and dance. And I was just like, and their team lost, but they didn't care. It was a party, man. You guys represented.
I mean, you should have gone to Miami.
Was it nuts in Miami?
Well, Colombian team was there. The Dominicans, there are a ton of Dominicans and Colombians and Venezuelans in Miami. Yeah. I think Venezuela played in Mexico, but the Miami was packed. Like that's the only time Marlins Park has been packed since like the first game at Marlins Park.
Since the All-Star game.
The All-Star game and the first game ever at Marlins Park, which I still remember to this day because I was like everyone was hyped about like Jose Reyes and like Mark Burley being on that team.
I will say one thing about that you said about Puerto Ricans in FIFA. So I worked in the Angel system for a long time, and I was around like Jose Molina, Will Nieves, some of those other Puerto Ricans, and Alfredo Amezaga, who's Mexican, was on a couple of those teams, and we would go and kick the ball in the field, and those dudes would just look at us like, well, ¿qué están haciendo? Esto no es pelota, ¿qué están haciendo? And then we tell them, hey, you should kick the ball, try to juggle it a little bit, whatever. It's like they've never ever seen a soccer ball before. So I always find that funny about like, well, hey, we play all the sports except soccer. We don't do that. We don't play soccer.
It's literally the sport that Puerto Ricans just don't really. I mean, American football they don't do either. They do neither football. They stick away from the football. It's basketball and baseball right now on the island, and volleyball. It's kind of a thing too. Boxing, obviously. But yeah.
No, man. Well, listen, we really appreciate you taking the time and sitting here and chatting with us about all the doom and gloom. You made me feel a little better, but you also made me feel a little hungry. So offensively, I'm going to go 3 for 4 with some tacos in a second.
There you go. Cool,
but man, listen, we really appreciate you joining us. Hopefully, we can have you back on as things get a little bit better and enjoy your time at home and eat some frijoles.
Hey, habichuela. I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Yeah, if you guys ever need me back on, let me know. I'll be on.
Absolutely. Thank you.